I want to thank Chris, Greg, and Lindsay. It's great to be able to highlight the issues that are apparent every day. And there's a lot of requirements that are starting to come in from the federal side, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And that's toward the end of my presentation. I want to go through some of the programs that can really help you get this kick started. And discuss a little bit of our organization. Now, before I jump into our presentation, I wanted to run a quick poll just to get an understanding of the knowledge base in terms of some of the programs that are available. But there is a very unique opportunity that has been presented due to our federal work with NOAA's Coastal Change Management Program, which I'll talk about in a few slides here. So if we just wanted to run that poll quickly.
You want to run the funding programs poll or the assets collected poll?
If we could do both, that would be great. I'll just I'll do a quick introduction while they go out.
I'll do the funding one first.
Perfect. So we'll give everyone a couple of seconds to review those questions. But in the meantime, a quick introduction to Ecopia AI. We've been using advanced machine learning to extract highly precise geometric features at scale for the last 10 years. So I know that there is a lot of tools that are available in the marketplace, but what we actually are is a content building service. So we will create vector data and identify important municipal assets across the country every year from the latest and best aerial imagery. And all of this data can be used in any one of your any software programs that you're typically using today. So really, there's no need for additional training or understanding how to set parameters with automation tools. We are going to be giving you a finished product with human level accuracy so that your teams can get right to work. So we want to make GIS teams more effective. So instead of, as Lindsay mentioned, having 10 people have to spend time to do manual digitization on imagery that might be 2018, 5 years old, we want to create a program, and we're already working with the government to do this, to collect the latest aerial imagery and to process that and to divide it into 50 transportation assets, which I can talk about a little bit later on the presentation. But I really do want to focus today on the sidewalk data that will be available across the country, because we're very excited about this program. So we'll close up the pieces. So perfect. So I will touch on the federal funding programs that are available. The data that we're creating is really helpful for some of the planning initiatives, especially for programs like Safe Streets for All. And there's a few that I'll talk about toward the end of the presentation, but I'm always available to provide additional information if that's something that you're interested in, because it's always great to be able to leverage federal funding, especially when they're very generous programs. And I'm on the US DOT calls. It's a very easy process to get some of this funding to increase the effectiveness of your budget. And so the second question I have is, I know that sidewalks, some cities have spent a lot of time doing some digitization on this work. Today's presentation will be focused on that, but I wanted to do a quick poll to see if this is some information that that your team is already looking at or potentially trying to do right now. We'll give you guys a few minutes to collect that poll. So just to give you a little bit of a background of information on our organization, initially we got our start working with satellite imagery, collecting data for federal governments all across the globe. But what we recognized is if we could use higher resolution imagery, there was a much broader portfolio of municipal assets that we could start to collect. And that's where we've really started to expand into things like transportation right-of-way items, and even helping with stormwater impervious surface analysis. And so this is something that we have already committed to building out across the country. And there's too many times that I see data silos where the state is collecting data, the municipalities are collecting data, the federal government is collecting data. We really want to bring everybody together and keep a digital map up to date on an annual basis, so that we're really excited about moving forward with this program. Perfect. Yeah, so it seems that we're a little bit split across the board. And I think this is the next couple slides are very exciting because, again, we want to be able to have a conversation with your teams because of the national initiative that we're already working on. So this is a quick introduction to what we're doing. NOAA is actually one of our biggest clients, and they have asked us to do a complete impervious surface map, including natural features across the entire country from aerial imagery. And so this is a program that we've already started and we're almost in completion. But what it allows us to do is, with some additional segmentation, impervious surfaces can be broken out into parking lots, sidewalks, roadways, and other city obstruction assets. So we really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to clients before we get started on their area, because everybody's a little bit different in terms of where their data gaps might be. And so that's why we're very excited to have the potential opportunity to address you all today. So just to give you an example, this is all the pathways that we did for the Maryland region. And so this was the open data on pathways that was available before we started our project. And so you'll see after we completed our project from the latest aerial imagery, there's a significant increase in the amount of transportation pathways that we were able to identify for their community. But it actually allows us to go one step further. All of the data that we're collecting also has width measurements, and we can attribute different kinds of metadata depending on your requirements. And so what you'll see in this example here is that anything in green is at least 6 feet, 6 feet in width. Orange and yellow are in the 4 to 5 feet range, and anything in red is actually 3 feet, in the 3 foot range, which is no longer compliant to ADA requirements. And so you can see with this data, you can actually put together a very strong proposal for programs like Safe Streets for All, because you need to be able to identify the problem in time zero before we can start to plan for how we can make these communities safer and more equitable to all abled people. So this is something that this is an example of what will be built all across the country. We're also working with Illinois Department of Transportation to do this across the state. And so you'll see here, this is a similar example of all the sidewalk center lines of the downtown Chicago area, and then the same kind of analysis. So you can see which areas might have some issues, and also this can be used for Justice 40 requirements. So just understanding which areas have been underinvested, so that can also help with your application process when you're applying for federal dollars. So just a quick highlight of our organization. We've been doing this for 10 years now. We work with federal governments all across the world. We've been doing mapping in over 100 countries. So this isn't the e-cognitions of the past. This is the data set that is always checked over and has the highest degree of accuracy. And one of the advantages of our system is that it's image agnostic. So we can be using satellite imagery if you want to do rapid change detection or after a catastrophe. We typically use aerial imagery because it has the best absolute accuracy, and it allows us to collect a much broader portfolio of city assets. And we work with all of the major aerial providers in order to make sure that we have coverage of the entire country every year. And one of the more exciting things that we're starting to do is that working with street view imagery now to really focus on curb cuts and getting a better understanding of ADA compliance. So there's a number of different ways that this can help. Federal reporting for Meyer, climate resiliency. We also can do paint striping to have a better understanding of parking and other pieces. So there's a number of different ways that we can do this. And I do like to bring up this slide because anybody who says that they're just using pure automation with remote sensing data, that tends to be a little bit of a red flag. All of our data is triple checked by our team of GIS experts. And that any training data that we identify that has any issues goes back into our training samples. So over the last 10 years, we continue to improve upon every project that we take in every different kind of terrain. So it's an iterative process in order to make sure that we can automate the best kind of results and then use our manual editing in order to make sure that we have above 95% accuracy. We actually were just assessed by the federal government. Typically in 95% is a worldwide average of accuracy. In North America, we're closer to about 97 or 98%. So I don't want to take too much time here, but the number one program that I do want to talk about, I was just on a US DOT call, is the SS4A program. It's very easy. It's very easy to get involved with. And once you have, you can use the funding in order to create your safety plans. And what you'll notice here is that it's broken up into two different kinds of funding. There's plan implementation, so the construction of certain transportation, but there's also a lot of funding for supplemental planning and plan development. So if you haven't gotten started or you don't know where to get started, you can actually you can apply for funding so that you can help start doing some of the early data collection so that you can start to identify areas where there may be issues. And on the last call that I was on, not enough funding was taken, and so that's rolling over into the next year. And so funding applications are actually open right now until the middle of July, and this is going to be a multi-year program. And so we have specialists internally that can also help you with that process, but it's not a very lengthy process in order to start to get that qualification. So there's a number of different ways that we can help with data collection in order to justify federal grant money for your communities. So there's a number of other programs that I'd love to discuss with you. I just want to be cognizant of time and leave some room for questions. But I'm always available in order to talk about some of the active transportation programs that are available, and how those programs can be used and applied for. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We are really excited with the data that we're building. We're already doing it for NOAA, and if we can have a quick conversation, we can understand how we can segment the data that we're already building so that it meets and fits any gaps that your team might have, whether you don't have the data at all, or maybe it's starting to get out of date. So we really just want to eliminate manual digitization so that your GIS teams can be as effective as possible and get right to work doing their statistical analysis, their visualizations, and their travel demand analysis.